The Christian Heineking lawsuit against SafeSport and USEF is becoming one of the most controversial legal battles in modern equestrian sport. And this SafeSport controversy is raising serious questions about due process, athlete protection, and the growing authority of governing bodies in the United States. The case is not only about one rider's removal from the sport, but also about whether a system designed to protect athletes can operate with extraordinary power without the same safeguards expected in a court of law. This situation forces a difficult question. What happens when a rider who has already lost his career turns around and claims that the system responsible for that outcome acted unfairly? This is not simply another headline. The Christian Heineking lawsuit represents a moment that could redefine how SafeSport operates and how USEF enforces its authority. So welcome back to our channel. In this video, we're taking a deep and detailed look into this SafeSport lawsuit, including what led to it, what is being alleged, and why the case is sending shockwaves through the equestrian community. This is not a simple story with clear answers. The Christian Heineking case sits at the intersection of law, sport, and ethics, and it highlights a tension that the horse world has been struggling with for years. At the center of this discussion are two principles that are both essential. The first is the need to protect athletes from harm. The second is the need to ensure fairness and due process for those who are accused. This lawsuit brings those two principles into direct conflict. Before the lawsuit and before the SafeSport controversy, Christian Heineking was a professional show jumper working within the United States equestrian system. He was based in Texas, where he trained riders, developed horses, and operated a competitive program. He competed at the Grand Prix level and built a career in a sport where reputation, trust, and consistency are critical. For years, Christian followed a structured and predictable path. He trained clients, attended competitions, and maintained a presence within the community. From an outside perspective, there was little indication that his career would take a dramatic turn. However, in 2023, everything changed for him. Christian Heineking's name appeared in the U.S. Center for SafeSport disciplinary list under what was initially described as a temporary suspension tied to allegations of misconduct. At the early stage, very little detail was publicly available, which is often the case when SafeSport first takes action. However, the situation escalated significantly soon after. Christian was formally charged in Texas with sexual assault of a child, a second-degree felony. The charge was reportedly connected to an alleged incident dating back to December of 2010. That development marked a turning point in the case. Following the criminal charge, SafeSport updated Christian's status from temporary suspension to permanent ineligibility, effectively banning him from participation in the sport. As required under the current system, USEF enforced that decision, and the FEI extended the consequences internationally. At that point, the situation moved beyond an internal disciplinary matter and into the criminal justice system. However, this is where the case becomes more complex. Based on publicly available information, there is no widely confirmed record that the criminal case resulted in a conviction. Reports indicate that the legal proceedings evolved over time, but the final outcome has not been clearly established in public accessible sources. The gap is critical to understanding the current lawsuit. Because while the criminal case did not produce a clearly documented conviction, the SafeSport sanction remained in place. This creates a fundamental distinction between two systems operating at the same time. The criminal justice system requires a high burden of proof, and cases can take years to resolve, with outcomes that may include dismissal, reduction of charges, or acquittal. SafeSport operates differently. It is not a criminal court, and it does not require proof beyond a reasonable doubt. It is designed to act quickly in order to protect athletes, even if that means acting before legal proceedings are complete. In the case of Christian Heineken, these two systems did not align. The criminal process moved forward on its own timeline, while the disciplinary process reached a conclusion that effectively ended his career within the sport. That disconnect now sits at the center of this lawsuit. To understand the significance of the Christian lawsuit, it is necessary to understand why SafeSport exists. SafeSport was created in response to major abuse scandals that exposed serious failures in athlete protection. In many cases, misconduct were not reported and was not taken seriously, or was handled internally in ways that did not prioritize safety. In equestrian sport, the traditional system relied heavily on trust and reputation. While this approach worked in many cases, it also created vulnerabilities. Over time, several high-profile cases forced the sport to confront those weaknesses. One of the most significant cases involved George Morris, whose lifetime ban marked a turning point and demonstrated that even highly influential figures could be held accountable. Another widely discussed situation involved Michael Barisone, which brought national attention to the sport and highlighted the complexities of training relationships and the pressures faced by athletes. There have also been numerous other cases involving trainers and professionals whose names appeared on the SafeSport list, sometimes with limited public explanation. These cases collectively contributed to the creation and expansion of SafeSport as an independent authority. SafeSport has significant authority, and this lawsuit directly challenges how that authority is used. When SafeSport issues a sanction, it applies across governing bodies, affecting eligibility, reputation, and career opportunities. For Christian, that authority resulted in permanent ineligibility. SafeSport does not operate like a criminal court. There is no jury, and the standard of proof is different. Investigations can remain confidential, and sanctions can be imposed before legal cases are resolved. Supporters argue that this structure is necessary to protect athletes, demonstrate the risks of a system that can act quickly without traditional safeguards. This creates a fundamental tension between protection and fairness. This lawsuit filed in federal court in Texas represents a direct challenge to SafeSport and USEF. Christian alleges that he was denied due process and that the procedures used to investigate and sanction him were flawed. The lawsuit argues that decisions were made without sufficient evidence and without a fair opportunity to respond. Beyond the individual claims, the case raises broader legal questions about the authority of SafeSport. Because SafeSport operates under federal law, its actions must meet certain legal standards. The lawsuit suggests that those standards may not have been fully satisfied. Another key issue in this lawsuit is the disconnect between criminal proceedings and disciplinary actions. That disconnect, which we saw earlier, is central to the argument now being made in court. This SafeSport controversy is part of a larger pattern within the equestrian sport. Over the past decade, the sport has shifted from informal oversight to centralized authority. SafeSport was created to address real problems, and many believe it has improved athlete protection. However, cases like this lawsuit highlight ongoing concerns about fairness. Critics argue that once a sanction is issued, action is necessary to protect athletes. This case forces this debate into the open. The outcome of the Christian Heineken lawsuit could have significant implications. If the lawsuit succeeds, it could lead to changes in how SafeSport operates, including greater procedural safeguards. If it does not succeed, it will reinforce the current system and confirm SafeSport's authority. Either way, this case will have lasting effects on equestrian sport. This lawsuit against SafeSport and USEF is not just about one individual. It is about how sport balances protection and fairness. It is about how power is used, and it is about how systems evolve over time. There are no simple answers, but there are important questions. So what do you think about this case? Do you believe SafeSport is working as intended, or do you think changes are needed? Let us know.